It all started, as these things often do, with a baby shower. Mine. Or, at least, it was supposed to be mine. Let me paint you a picture. I was 34, finally pregnant after years of trying. We were over the moon. David, my husband of 7 years, and I, had this beautiful house in the suburbs, 2 golden retrievers, the perfect life, or so I thought. The baby shower was planned to the last detail, or so I thought. My best friend, Sarah, had organized everything. The venue was this charming little tea room, all floral arrangements and pastel colors, exactly what I wanted. My family was flying in, David's family, well, they were invited. Things had been strained with his mother ever since we announced the pregnancy, but I was trying to be optimistic. I remember the feeling of sheer, unadulterated joy when the doctor confirmed the pregnancy. After years of charting cycles, countless doctor's appointments, and the heartbreaking disappointment of negative pregnancy tests, it felt like a miracle. I cried, not just tears of happiness, but tears of relief. We were finally going to be parents. David was ecstatic too, practically vibrating with excitement. He started talking about baby names, nursery themes, and the future. We were a team, solid and united. The nursery, oh, the nursery. I had pored over Pinterest boards for months, dreaming of a serene space, bathed in soft light, filled with whimsical touches. I'd chosen a pale blue for the walls, accented with delicate white trim. We planned on a custom-made crib, a rocking chair that would be the perfect haven for late-night feedings, and a bookshelf overflowing with children's books. We even had a tiny, plush lamb toy, perched on the top shelf, waiting for the little one. The anticipation was almost unbearable. The day arrived, sunny and crisp. I woke up with that familiar pre-shower flutter of nerves and excitement. I smoothed a hand over my slightly rounded belly, feeling the tiny flutter of the baby within. I was glowing, radiating that pregnant woman bliss. Sarah called around noon to see how everything was going. "Are you ready for the best day ever?" she asked, her voice buzzing with excitement. "Ready as I'll ever be," I laughed. "I'm so glad you took care of everything. Honestly, I'm so exhausted. I can't imagine coordinating this, let alone decorating my house for a baby, being a mom, and working all at the same time. I'm so thankful to you, honestly. You deserve this, girl. It's going to be amazing. Just relax and let me handle the rest." Sarah and I were putting the final touches on the decorations, a banner that read, "Welcome, little one," and, most importantly, a giant stack of presents. My eyes drifted over to David, and he was already in his element, making the rounds, shaking hands, and laughing a little too loud. He looked happy. Genuine. He seemed genuinely happy, not just pretending. He was always charming, even when he wasn't trying. I'd fallen for that charm, hard. That's how he got me. I remember thinking, he seems genuinely happy. The relief was palpable. Maybe, just maybe, the strain of the last few months, the subtle tension that had begun to creep into our relationship, was gone. Maybe the baby would be the fresh start we both needed. The thought filled me with hope. Then, his mother arrived. A woman whose face could curdle milk. She swept in, a cloud of Chanel No. 5 and disapproval. She had a way of moving that suggested she owned the room. The way she carried herself, you'd think she was a queen. I went over to greet her, offering a hug. She stiffened and said, "Well, this is all a bit much, isn't it?" My stomach immediately knotted. I plastered a smile on my face. "We're just excited," I replied, my voice a little too high-pitched. That wasn't a lie, but it also wasn't the full truth. I was excited, yes, but also terrified. Terrified of the unknown, terrified of motherhood, and, if I was honest, terrified of his mother. From the moment we announced the pregnancy, she had been distant. I could sense the disapproval radiating from her. She'd always been critical, but now, it was as if I'd personally offended her. I remember seeing her at Christmas, the previous year, the way she looked at me, the way she would talk to David in hushed whispers, and then change her tone when I was around. I always told myself that I was imagining things, but my gut told me that I wasn't. The shower got underway, and I started to relax. I felt the love of my family and friends. The games were silly, the food was delicious, and the presents were overflowing. The scent of lavender and roses filled the air, mingling with the sweet smell of the pastries. Laughter echoed throughout the tea room. I felt happy. I was surrounded by people who loved me, who were celebrating this new chapter in my life. I thought, this is it. This is what it's supposed to be, Then, David took the microphone. I expected a sweet speech, maybe a heartfelt declaration of love. I couldn't have been more wrong. He cleared his throat, adjusted the microphone, and began. Well, he began, his voice amplified in the suddenly quiet room. I'm sure you're all wondering what this is all about. My heart fluttered with excitement, and then a knot of dread began to form. It was subtle at first, a tickle in my throat, the way my stomach tightened. He could have been nervous. He wasn't one for public speaking. Then the knot in my stomach grew. This, baby, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly planned. The room went silent. I felt my face flush. I could feel the blood rushing to my cheeks. The smile I'd been wearing felt frozen in place. I turned to look at him, but his gaze was fixed on the crowd. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He continued, I'm happy, of course. But let's be honest, this wasn't on the schedule. It's a little inconvenient, shall we say? He chuckled, and his mother gave him a look that seemed to say, good boy. I could practically see the strings being pulled. I was mortified. My friends and family looked at me, shocked. I could feel their eyes on me. I saw the confused glances, the sympathetic smiles. My mother's face was a mask of fury. Her eyes were darting between me and David, a silent conversation passing between them. I felt the tears prick at my eyes. How could he? How could he stand up in front of everyone and undermine everything? This was my moment, my celebration, and he was treating it like a business deal gone wrong. He went on, rattling off some rehearsed platitudes about how he'd adjust, and, basically, he'd make the best of it. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to crawl under a table and hide. I had a flash of the life we had built together, the laughter, the late-night talks, the shared dreams. I wondered if any of it had been real. I wondered how I could have been so blind. But the worst was yet to come. As he finished, his mother stood up, taking the microphone. Her entrance was like a dark cloud rolling in, a visible shift in the atmosphere. She stood, ramrod straight, her posture conveying an air of superiority. I just want to add, she announced, her voice dripping with disdain, that I always told David he deserved better. The words hit me like a physical blow. My breath hitched in my throat. The room was silent. You could have heard a pin drop. She continued, her voice picking up speed, her words like venom. She went on to list all the supposed failings of our marriage, how I wasn't ambitious enough, wasn't social enough, didn't fit into their high society lifestyle, or, now saw, their plans. I remembered a conversation with her at a family dinner about how I had settled in my career, about how I wasn't using my skills to their potential. She ended by saying, we'll just have to see if this situation works out. The room was in stunned silence. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. I wanted to disappear completely. I wanted the earth to swallow me whole. David, in a move that still shocks me, just smiled. He agreed with his mother. He made eye contact with me, a cold, dismissive look. There was no remorse, no regret. He was enjoying this, enjoying the humiliation. That was the moment I knew I was done. I excused myself, mumbled something about needing air, and fled. I ran outside, the floral decorations and the smiling faces of my friends and family blurring into an unbearable haze. The crisp, autumn air did nothing to cool the fire burning inside me. I sobbed in the parking lot, completely shattered. I had never felt so betrayed, so humiliated. The image of David's smile, his mother's triumphant face, and the vacant stares of my friends and family flashed before my eyes. I thought, how could he do this to me? To us, Sarah, bless her heart, found me. She hugged me, offered comfort, and assured me that David was an idiot. She tried to rally the other guests, but the damage was done. Most of them, including my family, had left. The baby shower ended in a disaster. She stayed with me, she wouldn't leave. He's a jerk, she said, her voice filled with righteous anger. Don't you let him win. I felt her arms around me and all I could think of was how glad I was that she was there. She was always there. She had seen me at my worst, and she had always believed in me. I squeezed her back, willing the sobs to subside. I went home, alone. I didn't even want to talk. I couldn't. The words wouldn't come. The next few weeks were a blur of tears, arguments, and the gnawing sense of dread that something was terribly, terribly wrong. I barely saw David. He was distant, cold, and completely unapologetic. He tried to blame me, of course. He said I overreacted, that he was just being honest. He tried to say that it was me who brought down the room, but that was a complete lie. The audacity. He claimed he felt stifled by me. That I wasn't ambitious enough. That my career wasn't progressing. That I held him back. It was a litany of complaints, none of which, I felt, were true. It was all a rehearsed script. I confided in Sarah, cried on her shoulder for hours, and she was, as always, the voice of reason. He's not the man you thought he was, she said. And you deserve better. She was right. That was the turning point. I realized that I deserved better, and I deserved more. I deserved respect, love, and a partner who would stand by me, not undermine me. I deserved a life filled with joy, not constant criticism and disapproval. The silence in the house was deafening. The air hung thick with unspoken words, the weight of our fractured relationship pressing down on me. I tried to find solace in the familiar comforts of our home, the cozy living room, the sun-drenched kitchen, but they offered no respite. Everything felt tainted. Then, the dinner. The important dinner. David insisted. He cooked a meal, a big show of his supposed love. It was his way of trying to smooth things over. A pathetic attempt at reconciliation. I knew it was a lie, a carefully constructed performance. As we sat down at the table, I was still in a haze. I barely registered the food. It was a fancy meal, something he'd clearly put a lot of effort into. But I barely looked at it. I was still running the events of the baby shower through my head. I tried to stay calm, but it was hard. He started a conversation, but I was barely listening. My mind was racing, churning with the memories of the baby shower, his blatant disrespect, and his mother's venomous words. Suddenly, he reached into his pocket, and, to my utter shock, he pulled out a folder. I could feel my heartbeat quicken, my breath catching in my throat. "I need to be upfront, honey," he said, his voice uncharacteristically serious. "Things aren't working, and I think it's time." My heart leaped into my throat. I braced myself. I knew, in that moment, that everything was about to change. He opened the folder, slid across the table, and handed me the papers. The divorce papers. He had the audacity to serve me divorce papers at dinner. I stared at the bold, black letters, my vision swimming. It felt like a cruel joke, a slap in the face. I looked at the papers, then back at him, my mind struggling to process the information. The elegant script on the formal papers made the situation even more cold. It was a pre-made, formal way of showing that all this was planned. The starkness of it all was shocking. I hadn't been expecting this. I don't understand," I stammered, the words catching in my throat. "Why?" My voice was shaky, betraying the turmoil within. He shrugged, the epitome of cool indifference. "Well, it just isn't working out, is it? I'm just not happy." He continued, laying out his reasons, my supposed failings as a wife, my lack of ambition, the inconvenience of a baby. It was a carbon copy of his mother's criticisms. A well-rehearsed speech. He was just saying all the things his mother had said. I saw a flash of their hushed conversations, their shared glances. I had been so focused on my own happiness and expectations that I hadn't seen the writing on the wall. I hadn't seen the plot unfolding. I sat there, stunned, speechless. He'd been planning this for weeks, possibly months. While I was planning a nursery, he was plotting my downfall. While I was dreaming of our future, he was planning to abandon it. I thought of the weeks I'd spent preparing the nursery, the nights I'd stayed up researching baby gear, the anticipation of the little life we were creating. I thought of how much I loved him. All of it felt like a lie. But then, something shifted inside me. The shock and hurt began to fade, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I had been devastated, broken, and humiliated. But the rage inside me began to coalesce, forming into a plan, a way to get back at him, a delicious concoction of cold revenge. I looked at him, my eyes cold and calculating. "Fine," I said, my voice steady. "If that's what you want, I will." I met his gaze, refusing to flinch. I wouldn't let him see how much this hurt. And that's when the real fun began. I could practically feel the gears turning in my head. The pain and betrayal began to fuel a cold, calculated desire for payback. I spent the next few weeks meticulously planning my revenge. I took everything I could. I'm not talking about petty stuff. I'm talking about financial assets, and a strategic play to get the house. I knew David wanted the house. He loved it. And that was the key. That's where the real damage would be. First, I hired the best divorce lawyer in the city. A shark. A woman who would see to it that I got everything I deserved. I needed someone ruthless, someone who wouldn't let David get away with anything. Someone who would fight for me. I needed someone who would help me claw back my life. Then, I contacted my family's lawyer. A man who specialized in real estate. Someone who knew all the ins and outs of property law. Who could help me secure the house. I had all the files I needed. I used David's own money to fund the divorce, using everything he'd earned in my name. I made sure to take full advantage of my position. And, I was pregnant. This would change everything. I knew I had leverage. The law was on my side. I waited for him to return from a supposed business trip, my moment to strike. I knew he wasn't gone for business. I got that intel through a mutual friend, and I knew exactly where he was. I knew the hotel, the city, even the room number. I saw the woman he was with. My blood boiled. I would wait, but I would strike. As he walked in, fresh off of a romantic getaway with his secretary, I made the move. His smug face looked confused. The look on his face was priceless. I called him, asked him to come inside, and have a talk. He didn't know what was coming. We talked about his career, the house. I subtly mentioned the money. I could see the panic rise in his face. The way he was looking at me. He knew I was going to do something. Then, I dropped the bomb. So, I said, you'll be happy to know that you can officially consider yourself homeless. I smiled, a cold, hard smile. The lawyers will contact you in the morning, and I've filed a restraining order, so you can't come within 100 feet of me or the baby. Oh, and congratulations, by the way. You're a father. The world tilted on its axis. The blood drained from his face. He sputtered, he raged. He begged. But it was too late. I had all the evidence. His affairs, his financial indiscretions, his utter contempt for me, all of it. Everything he thought he was entitled to was gone. He'd destroyed my life. He'd humiliated me in front of my friends and family. He thought he could walk all over me. But I'd taken everything he'd worked for. Everything he thought he had was gone. I savored the moment. I watched the realization dawn on his face, the disbelief, the panic, the slow collapse of his carefully constructed world. It was the sweetest revenge I'd ever tasted. The satisfaction was intoxicating. I relished every moment. The following months were filled with legal battles, public shaming, and David's desperate attempts to win me back. But it was all in vain. He tried everything, pleading, begging, promising to change. But the trust was broken, the damage was done. His mother, now stripped of her social standing and her family's financial security, refused to have anything to do with him. Her influence was gone. Her world had crumbled along with his. His career was ruined. His reputation was in tatters. He was utterly alone, and utterly broke. He'd lost everything. The sweetest part of the revenge? I kept the house. The house that he loved, the house that he thought he could take from me. It was a constant reminder of his failure. The baby? A healthy, beautiful girl. David's mother saw her once and refused to see her again. David sends me letters every week, begging to see her. The letters are filled with remorse, with promises, with desperate pleas for forgiveness. I haven't replied to a single one. Today, I'm thriving. I have a wonderful job, a beautiful daughter, and a life filled with love and laughter. The house is full of life, full of light. I'm also dating a wonderful man. Someone who respects me, loves me, and supports me. He values me and my daughter. And every now and then, when I look at the house and think of all the sleepless nights and how my life was ripped away, I smile. The joy and laughter of my daughter fill the house. They light it up. David? He's still struggling. Last I heard, he was living in a tiny apartment, working a dead-end job, and trying to rebuild his life. He's a shadow of his former self. He's alone, miserable, and completely broke. And sometimes, late at night, I think about calling him. Just so I can hear him beg again. Just to hear him feel the pain he inflicted on me. The temptation is always there. But I resist. I don't need to. I've won. So, that's my story. If you ask me, karma is real, and it's delicious. What do you think? Have you ever gotten revenge on someone? Share your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Reddit revenge stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.